Hello everyone, Bernina Jeff here at High Fashion in Grand Junction, Colorado. Today we're going to learn about check springs. And a check spring is a device that is in every machine. It's a little smaller than this one. But when a stitch is made, this kind of comes up and takes up the extra slack. And Bernina and many other companies use this to check to see if there's upper thread being followed in the upper thread path. If this guy quits moving, a message or a error comes onto your screen. I'm going to show you how this happens, and then I'm going to show you how to fix it. Save you a trip to your dealer. It's relatively simple. So if you're sewing along, you've got a full thing of thread, everything's threaded right, and you're sewing along, and sometimes this takes a few extra stitches, and look what happens. It shows an empty spool of thread, and you've got full thread here. It's not broken. What the machine has just sensed that this check spring is no longer going up and down because either it's out of place or it's broken, or there's actually a black plastic flag that attaches back here through a little slot. Sometimes this flag is out, so the flag isn't moving even though this is going. So I'm going to show you the alternatives to sewing with it as is and how to fix it yourself. So if you have good stitch quality, you know you got thread, you can X out of here. Oh, and by the way, this is a 770 plus, so I always need to match the 1C with this little icon here. If I were to put a 1D on there, it would give me a question mark and I would have to select the foot. The old 770s that had not been upgraded do not have that feature, but they can't be. All right, so we're going to go into the gears. That's the universal symbol for setup. I'm going to push it once. And then I'm going to go into this icon that looks like an open eye. It's a sensor. I can go ahead and turn off the upper thread sensor. Some models have a lower bobbin thread sensor also. That's especially models that have embroidery features because they need to know when the bobbin runs out. So I'm going to X out of that. Now if I sew, it'll sew without ever detecting the upper thread. And if my stitch quality is good, I can use that until it's the next scheduled maintenance for your machine. But I want to show you how you can fix this check spring issue yourself. So Bernina gives you this tool. It's a L-shaped and it's a 20 Torx on both ends. So I'm going to take this head plate cover off. So I'm going to lefty-loosey unscrew this. Take the screw off. At this point, before I open up the machine, unplug it. I don't want anything metal in there touching any electrical. So I'm going to pull up. There's a little arrow here right toward the bottom. I'm going to pull up on that and kind of wiggle. And this, the first time this cover comes off, you really have to struggle. After that, it tends to be a little bit looser. Now, you're going to need a light source of some kind. I love these pen lights. Guess what? I sell my Shopify for $4.99, including 2 batteries. So I'm looking in here, and it's probably really difficult to see because this camera doesn't come up. But this is the check spring. If you look at it real close, it has a little loopy on the end. See that loop?
Yeah.
And if I let it go, get it out of there, and then push it downward, it just popped back into its channel. It's supposed to be behind that little metal little hook job. That is back into its place. And that will let you have good stitch quality and stitch properly. However, there's one more thing you need to check for, and we have to get a little more hands involved here. We have to take this little part off here. You actually have the needle screwdriver is a 10 Torx, and that's the size of that screw right there. But most of the time it's going to be so tight that you don't have enough leverage on it. So there's a secondary company that makes this screw key do. It's the same size end, and it gives you more leverage. So I can get in there, and I'm going to take this screw out. And I probably should have unthreaded it first, but you know, I only have so many hands. And we're going to angle this over, and I'm going to take the thread out. I've found that this check spring can get out of place if you're sewing along and you run your thread totally off the spool. There's usually a knot or some sort of a twist on the end of that thread, and that will actually pop the check spring out of place. So I recommend not running totally empty on the upper spool. It could cause you some problems. So I'm getting this thread out of here. Let's see what we have here. So what I'm looking for now, and this has happened here, is there is a flag. See this little piece of plastic here? Mm-hmm. And it has a channel in it right there. This check spring is supposed to ride in that channel. And when that goes up and down, that tells the machine there's upper thread. So if this check spring, like right now, has popped out of there, I am going to use, I actually have this stiletto, and it's a nice tool for the job. And see, I popped it right in there. Now that flag and the check spring work together, and that'll tell the machine there's thread. Behind this is a sensor on a little green board. It's a light sensor, and it lets the machine know if there's light or not light, and it lets you sew. And if you look close, here's that, I showed you a giant check spring. This is what the check spring looks like in real life. So now what we have to do is put that part back on, and that part actually screws in to this area here. So you have to kind of finagle this to find your screw. So that little shorty gray screwdriver is going to be tough. So this only goes on one way, and it goes down like a fish hook. So it goes down that way. I'm going to line that up, and it's kind of lined up there. So but first I'm going to preset this screw onto my 10T screwdriver. And the flange side goes out, and if I want to actually put it through the hole, I might have a good chance of getting it all the way to the receiving area. Now I have to kind of push on this guard to find the threads. Just takes a little patience. And gravity usually comes in and knocks that screw off. This may require a regular size 10 Torx. No, I got it. It's back together. There's only one screw that holds this on, so that's not too scary. So let's see how we did. The check spring's between there. It's still on the flag, and that's tight. That's tight. That's good. So tools you're going to need is a stiletto. I bet you could do it with the perfect offset tweezers, but I sell a ton of these stilettos. They're a by Annie stiletto. I'll put it on my Shopify account, but it has a little texture. It's the best stiletto for sewing, and it just, the way it's designed, there's texture on it. It's not just a plain Jane product, so it's a really good investment for a stiletto. The other thing I showed you was this 10 Torx screw. It actually fits on the needle screw, so it gives you a bigger handhold to take your needle in and out. And that's called a Screw Key-Do 2. It's pink, size 10. If you happen to have a 5 series or 4 series, this Screw Key-Do fits right over the little black handle on the screw. So I sell those too. And they make one for your clamp on your hoop too. So this is one little US company that makes these out of her garage. Pretty cool design. And I only show you tools that aren't too expensive that I use every day. So we are going to put this back together. I'm going to show you how to put this head cover on. So we're going to see these little tabs. They fit into the little square boxes there, and angle it in real carefully. Bring it down and then pull out a little bit. There's a little flex. If you don't pull out, it's not going to pop into place and you're going to struggle. Feel all the way around. Make sure your seam's good. Put your screw in there and take your L-shaped, this is a 20T or a 20 Torx, or T20 I should say, and just snug. Don't white knuckle that. Again, what we just fixed was the check spring. And the thread connects here and then pops it up and down. I've actually seen it break here so the thread doesn't connect anymore. If you happen to have an 830, an 880, or an 820, these check springs are straight like this and they break off all the time, and it really keeps you from ever sewing. So that's something you'll have to see your technician on. And then a nice light. And the other thing I wanted to show you, and we're going to turn this on while it's booting up. I'm going to plug it in. Remember, I unplugged it. While it's booting up, I've learned a lot from this book. It's called A Field Guide, You and Your Sewing Machine. It's new. It came out in like 2021. And it has even the 7 series and the 4 series and the 5 series, giant bobbin and hook. And it's not just Bernina. It has all brands of sewing machines in here. And teaches you about how thread comes off and how things form, about needles. So it's a $24.95 book. Look for it on Amazon. If you do not don't want to do that, we will sell them here at the store. There's going to be a little extra shipping because these are heavy. So you can order these on the store. I'll put these on my Shopify account today too. So when you reboot your machine, and remember I closed the eyeball, this indicator will come up, this message that your upper thread indicator is disabled. So I'm going to hit the green check mark. I'm going to go into my settings, and I'm going to hit my eye and turn that upper sensor back on so the eyeball is open. So now, if we have done everything properly and rethread our machine, so here's the way I like to rethread my machine. I can do it sitting down. I put the thread on. I have a secondary clip. Come on, show the secondary clip. This secondary clip keeps the thread from swagging behind here and jumping out of this first pre-tensioner and end up across here. When the thread ends up across there, it jumps out of the tension unit and you get you get really crummy stitching. So once it's in there, I sell those Shopify, they're $2. I snap it up there and come down, around, to the right, to the left, make sure it kind of slides in there, behind the wire, behind this little teeny wire. I call it the fishing tip wire because when I got it behind there, it wiggles like the tip of a fishing rod. Now, pull this halfway down, wrap it around the post, hold it out at 45 degrees and straight across, engage the threader head. There's a slot, I pop it in. And this little gadget over here on the right-hand side is an add-on. You can buy these on my Shopify account. They're a thread cutter / holder, and it holds the thread at just the right tension that when you let go, it pulls up. You don't have to fiddle on how hard you hold the thread. Now, I lower the foot, and then I reach behind here with my 2 thumbs and pull the loop of the thread out. Now here's a trick that probably most of you don't know. You can go ahead and raise the foot again, but when you have a coated foot with this little sidecar, lift underneath there. It's just spring loaded. Now I can do whatever I want with it and let it go. Look how cool that is. Just lift up with your finger and you can put a foot on, you can change your position of your fabric or anything like that, as long as that code's on there. So there's a off the menu special tip. Now let's see if we fixed our problem. We're going to go ahead and sew, and it should sew all day long. Backwards, forwards, zigzags. You know you could change zigzag while you're sewing. It's kind of cool. Let's see if the cutter works. I'm going to do a video on the cutter. However, there's no way you can fix it at home. So look there, I went from wide to narrow to wide just by turning the knob as I was sewing. So you can taper your own stitches that way. Thanks again. This is Bernina Jeff, and please feel free to contact us at 970-256-1293. That's Mountain Standard Time in Colorado, so call after 9:30 Colorado time. www.hifashiongj.com is my website. And my Shopify account where I have all these cool tools and stuff, it is bernina-jeff.myshopify.com. It's down in the descriptions. Please subscribe and like. And if you have comments, I try to try to address those at least once a month or so. Thank you very much.